It's been about 6 months now with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I'm going to tell you how it's held up a year after the phone launched back in September. I personally feel like I've been a little bit hard on this phone. I've made a couple videos talking about, in my opinion, some of its glaring issues, but I wanted to revisit it. See, I've been using my S23 Ultra as my daily driver for the last 2 months now, and I decided to pop my SIM back in the 14 Pro Max to just give it a fair shot once and for all. So here's what I learned about the iPhone 14 Pro halfway into its life cycle. Before we get started though, a like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. You all have absolutely killed it, and it means so much that we're pushing 17,000 subscribers on the channel. So I just quickly wanted to say thank you all so much for the support that you've given me. Anyways, let's get back into it. There's no doubt that the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a premium phone. It's built like an absolute tank with flat stainless steel edges, a flat display, and the corners are nicely rounded into the palm of your hands. At a glance, it just looks like a high-end accessory to your everyday life. Though when it comes to comfort, this design leaves a little to be desired. The flat edges make it harder for anyone with smaller hands to reach across the display, which can be a challenge given the iPhone's navigation gestures. If you think this is going to be a problem for you, I'd highly recommend just going for the standard 14 Pro. I think that's going to be a much more comfortable device to use as your daily driver. But there's a trade-off with that. You're sacrificing this beautiful large display. This is Apple's ProMotion Super Retina XDR display, and at 6.7 inches, I think it's a really nice size for gaming or watching content. However, there's a little caveat that we're gonna have to dive into, because although this display is large and has a ton of real estate, you don't actually end up using it to its fullest. Some of that is due to the rounded corners cutting off content, but another is because of that hideous dynamic island. I won't sit here and sugarcoat it. I hate this thing. However, it does have use cases like housing the Face ID sensor, the ambient light sensor, and the front-facing camera. Though, it just sits so low into the phone, and it's so large that it makes it really hard not to notice it when you're trying to shift your focus to something else. However, it can be handy showing you devices that are connected or what song is currently playing, and it can even do turn-by-turn directions with maps. All in all though, it's up to you whether or not you think that the annoyance is worth the convenience. Moving on though, the 14 Pro Max uses the A16 Bionic, which is without a doubt the fastest SoC inside of a flagship device on paper. I think where Apple really benefits from the A16 Bionic though is with app optimization, having lots of games playable at 120 Hz versus the 60 or 90 on Android counterparts, despite both having pretty competent chips. This is why iPhone tends to do really well when it comes to video rendering tests or direct comparisons between, say, the 8 Gen 2 found in the S23 Ultra. But that extra love and optimization with the iPhone goes a long way, as apps like Twitter seem to perform better, and the camera within these social media apps tend to look best on the iPhone. This is something that is really nice to have as a consumer, because when I was using my Fold 4, I wasn't even able to make a community post from the YouTube app, despite both Android and YouTube being Google themselves. Let's talk about these cameras though, since they're quite hard to miss. The 14 Pro Max uses some new sensors compared to the previous devices. They allow for more light in due to the lower aperture, but the main sensor gets a boost from 12 megapixels to 48. The jump in resolution makes a huge difference to the photos, though you'll only really see this when shooting in Pro RAW, so you can take advantage of that 48 megapixel sensor. Otherwise, you'll be binning down to 12 in auto. I think the Pro RAW images are relatively pretty great and for the most part very consistent. I haven't had a bad experience with shooting on the iPhone except for that main sensor in auto mode. And the reason is because sometimes it could just be a hit or miss when it comes to HDR or focus and stuff like that. Marquez actually made a video explaining this, which I'll link in the description, because that is something that is gonna take a long time for me to explain, and we definitely don't have time for that in the video. In short though, all I'll say is when it comes to the camera, Apple has a lot of tweaking that needs to be done on the software side because of the new sensors. For video though, I really have no complaints, and I'll go as far as saying if you're a content creator and you make videos for apps like TikTok or exclusively short-based content, these 14 Pros are unbeatable. A lot of that has to do with in-app optimization, like I said earlier, but that's the truth. Even if you're somebody that may want to use the phone to vlog, the 4K 60 and 4K 30 modes are super smooth, super stable and sharp, with really nice colors, to the point where if you have one of these in your pocket and you're looking to start a channel, just use your phone. That being said, there are some things about this phone that I'm not entirely a huge fan of and really impact my experience with the device. I live in a condo in a pretty dense city. The reception is amazing and there's towers literally everywhere. But it doesn't matter what SIM or what carrier I use, I cannot get more than 2 bars of service inside my den, which is where my computer is and where I spend most of the days. The reason that this is a problem for me is that I get a ton of dropped calls, and it kind of sucks waiting on things like an epilepsy specialist or a doctor. I'm not entirely sure if I ever get those phone calls at all, which is why using the iPhone in this area is just kind of disappointing for me. It just doesn't instill the most confidence on whether or not I actually am getting those phone calls. And funny enough, my Apple Watch Ultra was able to receive calls in here that my iPhone wasn't. Another thing that's been kind of bugging me a little bit lately is the battery. When I got the phone, I was blown away with how long it was lasting, and it seemed like no matter how much I was using it, I couldn't kill it. These days, I'm still able to get about 7 hours of screen on time, which isn't bad by any means, but it's really worrying considering that I was able to get up to 10 to 11 hours. The phone also is still at 100% battery health, so there's no signs of real degradation, and I don't exactly know what's happening. Now, it could be iOS, but I'm on the newest developer beta 16.4, which I only just updated the other night, and I'm still noticing this. Speaking of iOS though, I don't have a problem with the software, but there's some things that I'd like to see changed, like the ability to move an app or widget wherever I'd like to on the home screen. The ability to customize the lock screen was something that was added in iOS 16, and it was really long overdue, but honestly, I don't think it was as important as being able to just move an icon wherever I need to. But I'm just worried that with Apple's focus shift towards AR or VR headsets, or whatever they got going on now, we're not going to see any major updates to iOS. I know that iOS is in a perfect state for a lot of people, but the techie in me honestly just wants to do more and have the ability to do more things on my device. I just want it to be a tad bit more open and offer a little bit more personalization. In conclusion though, I think the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a great buy and possibly the best phone for most people, especially those looking for nothing other than an iPhone. If you're interested in other devices though, I just made some videos about the S23 Ultra and some videos about the Fold 4, so I'll link those in the description down below, or you can just take a browse through my channel. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like down below, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.